Now that I'm used to the climate, I think that if man ever found a place to live easy and happy, that Eden is on Puget Sound. Eden is on Puget Sound. That Eden is on Puget Sound. A place to live easy and happy. That Eden is on Puget Sound.
Hello, you are listening to the Seattle Files. My name is Chris Allen. I'm your host. Every week I get together with a different local comedian, and together we discuss these strange, unusual, interesting, and oftentimes lesser-known aspects of our local history. Joining me today on the program is Gregr. How's it going, Gregr?
I'm doing great, man. This is rad.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Gregr is the morning DJ on 107.7 The End. It's really great to have you. I've been listening to The End since I was about 10 years old, so it's awesome that you're here.
It's great to be part of something that's been such a part of Seattle for so long.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah. He also hosts the podcast So You're in Seattle, which is a weekly podcast where he gets together with different movers and shakers and interesting people around town. You can get that on iTunes and presumably some other platforms as well.
SoYou'reInSeattle.com.
SoYou'reInSeattle.com. Excellent. Yeah. Definitely check that out. Cool.
Thank you.
How long have you lived here in the Seattle area?
Just over 7 years now.
Oh, cool. Where are you from?
I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, awesome. And what brought you up here?
Radio, actually.
Radio? Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Opportunity.
Cool. Awesome, yeah. How much do you know about local history?
I don't know, a little bit, a smidge.
Smidge?
Yeah.
Cool, smidge. Awesome, I like that. Cool, and you have no idea what we're going to be talking about today, correct?
Nothing. I didn't even cheat by looking at your notes, which you left on the table.
Oh!
I didn't even look ahead.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that. Awesome, so let's get started.
Great.
Cool. Thomas Mercer.
Oh, cool.
Was born March 11th, 1813, in Ohio, as the oldest son of Aaron and Jane Mercer. And when Thomas was 21, the family moved to Princeton, where his father operated a wool mill.
I'm watching Gilmore Girls right now, so I'm more of a Yale guy myself.
Oh, okay,
so.
All right. They do tend to bash Princeton a bit, don't they?
Yeah, there we go.
Thomas married, and he and his wife Nancy had 4 daughters. In Princeton, young Mercer met a like-minded pastor named Daniel Bagley, who was an abolitionist and anti-slavery activist. So the Mercers are very much egalitarians. They are very much anti-slavery.
Good for them.
Abolitionists. Oh yeah. Very progressive-minded for the time.
They like to keep all of us in the Mercer mess, which is an easy joke, but
yeah.
I feel like they do still have control over us as masses.
Yeah. We are in Lower Queen Anne, and the Mercer mess. Oh man. It's awful. The Oregon Territory, which at the time encompassed all of modern-day Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and some of western Montana, had been recently incorporated as part of the United States.
Cool.
So this is kind of a new area of the U.S. It was established in 1846. The Oregon Treaty in 1846 kind of cut what was called the Oregon Country in half, made the northern part British Columbia, the southern part the Oregon Territory.
Oh, okay.
So Washington, Oregon, and Idaho are all kind of one big clump at this point.
So everyone that's fighting for Cascadia to be a thing, they have to look back to the mid-1800s.
Look back to the mid-1800s, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So the 49th parallel is the new border with Great Britain, which was Canada at the time. In the years leading up to the Civil War, there was a lot of jockeying and positioning between the southern states and the northern states for political power. So this is a big part of Manifest Destiny that people kind of forget about.
Okay.
Is after the Mexican-American War in 1848, the South expands massively. So what's now California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, all of that was a part of Mexico until 1848.
Sure.
And then after the Mexican-American War, that all becomes the southern United States, which means all of those areas are now ripe to become slave states.
Okay.
Which means the South might be getting a whole lot of political power in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
That's more Senate seats, that's more congressional seats. So there's a lot of concern about that amongst the Northerners. So the Northerners basically want people to move to the Oregon Territory. They want people to expand north in order to kind of counteract that.
Oh, like a balance thing.
Exactly,
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. The big part of Manifest Destiny was about stuff that's leading up to the Civil War, is that they really want, the Northerners want political power for the North, the Southerners want political power for the South, and all of this comes to a head in the early 1860s when the Civil War breaks out.
Sure.
So this is all happening. So the Donation Land Claim Act is put into place in 1850. They're trying to get men and women to move out to the Oregon Territory. And so they say if you want to move out here, if you're a single man...
We'll give you an Xbox.
Yeah, so even better. 320 acres of land for free. You'd rather have an Xbox?
Yeah, an Xbox 328.
That's okay. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
I'll think about this. Let me consider it.
Okay, yeah, 320 acres of land or an Xbox.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, back then an Xbox would have been worth more than...
The magic box of wizards inside. What is this?
Put into this and then a screen will appear. What's a screen?
Yeah,
You don't even know what that is yet. If you're a married couple, you get 640 acres of land for free, which is a square mile.
Now, this is our land, right? This isn't someone else's land that we're just taking over?
Well, it is.
Damn it.
There's been natives living here for about 12,000 years.
How?
So it's this weird combination between they're trying to get white Americans to move out here to displace the native population and also to establish a non-slave state. So it's this weird mix between anti-racist and pro-racist reasons.
It's like how you have to plow a field and then put down a road. It's like the plowing part is the part that we're not proud of. And then look, we got this road out of it.
Yeah. So it's this weird kind of confluence of events that they're trying to get people to move out to the Oregon Territory.
Your vocab is fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Confluence, hello.
Confluence, yeah. I think I used that word right.
I think you did, too.
Okay, I hope so. So Mercer and Bagley decide to take their families and move out west to the Oregon Territory to get out to this new area because they're abolitionists and they see this as the right thing to do to try to come out and populate this land. So they form a wagon train and they're joined by another pioneer, Dexter Horton. Good old Dexter Horton.
Went on to start the Offspring.
They start moving on west. And the wagon train takes about 5 months to get out west.
So wait a second. In a previous episode, I heard about Ballard going back and forth 3 different times. Mm-hmm. And it's at 5 months a pop?
Yeah.
So just to go back and forth would be like a year's journey. And
right.
if you did it 3 times, wow!
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Ballard, I don't know if anybody has crossed the Oregon Trail as much as William Rankin Ballard had. Because that was a lot of going back and forth.
What an idiot.
Right, yeah. 5 months.
We got something nice out of it, though, Joe.
Mm-hmm. And you played the old Oregon Trail.
Of course.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, where you died of dysentery and cholera.
Yeah, I've lost all of my coworkers a lot when it resurfaced about a year ago. That's all we did for a whole day. We
nice.
Kill each other on Oregon Trail.
I wasn't sure if you meant that you were playing Oregon Trail with them, or if you listed them as on your wagon train of Oregon Trail.
Them and my dog, and you get the good screenshot for an Instagram of like, here lies Chowder. She would have loved to have seen Montana.
Yeah. Oh, so sad. Yeah. Those digital people. So the next 5 months, they didn't lose a single member to disease or injury, which is really incredible, considering that dysentery and cholera just ran rampant on the trail until they reached what's now
those are strippers, or
dysentery and cholera.
Sounds like a great time.
Yeah. Well, in the game, you could die of snakebite, and snakebite was a euphemism for syphilis.
Oh,
so it's a way of like kind of programming that. That in there. But then when they reached Northern Oregon, what's now Northern Oregon, just south of the Columbia River, Nancy Mercer, Thomas's wife, died of a fever.
Oh.
So she did not make it to the very end.
Again, though, playing the odds, I hate to be that guy, but playing the odds, it's not a bad loss.
Not a bad ratio.
It sucks for that guy, but like...
Yeah, it really sucks for Nancy.
Yeah, and Nancy too,
and the family. But really, having only one person die on the way out is really incredible.
How many bears did they shoot on the way? You got that stat?
I don't have that stat. I know that they could only carry 200 pounds of food, so they, you've got 8,000 pounds of meat and you can carry 200 pounds of it.
Touche.
And it depends on which version you're playing with what the hunting schematics look like.
The best.
Mm-hmm. The best was by far the where you just control the cursor, as opposed to where you have to turn your guy.
Oh,
around.
I like the turning one.
Oh, you like the turning around?
And then, like, in one of the ported versions, like, you'd push the arrow to turn, and then it would get stuck, and so your guy would just be spinning the whole time.
Oh,
You'd waste all that time and bullets, because then inevitably I'd have to hit spacebar a million times.
Mm-hmm.
And, you gotta shoot everything.
Just kind of spraying everything in a circle.
Yeah, exactly.
On the old Apple IIe, where it's a green and black screen.
Oh, the best.
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
Ford that river.
Mm-hmm. So, after Nancy died, Thomas went north, and he left his daughters behind. The 4 of them, the oldest one was 14 years old, and he left them in Salem to scout up and down the Puget Sound to look for a place with a suitable land claim.
You will live with the bears now.
Yeah. We probably left them with the other members of the wagon party. I don't have that in my notes, but I don't think he just said, all right, just you guys stay here.
You are coyote people now.
Yeah, exactly. The coyotes will raise you.
Yeah, that's great, though.
The Denny Party
Okay.
had arrived on Elliott Bay in 1851.
Okay.
So there's already people out here in what is now, white settlers out here in what is now Seattle. They'd begun building this small frontier town, and Henry Yesler had arrived a few years after that, had a steam-powered sawmill, and so they built the sawmill, and so this young city is kind of growing.
Wait a second, is that the Yesler sawmill that burned, that ended up
the fire,
wiping out the city?
The fire wiped out the city. Yeah, that's the same sawmill that burned. It was updated a couple of times, but it came out here in, I think, 1853, and then burned down in 1889.
Oh, okay.
So this is way later that it burns down.
Okay.
But this is the same Yesler and the same sawmill that were destroyed in the fire.
They're not just random names on these streets.
I
They
know.
mean something.
They're all
It's
named
crazy.
after people.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, Dexter is named after Dexter Horton, and the Borans were a family that were out here. Belltown is named after the Bell family, who were members of the Denny Party.
Oh, wow.
Who first came out here. So Belltown, that was their land claim.
Okay.
And, Boren's land claim was just south of that. So Mercer's land claim was Mercer's Street is the southern border of Mercer's land claim.
Oh, it's very, Western to, pick a road and make a straight line and be like, this is mine now. Like a baseline type for surveying purposes.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, that's exactly where the street names came from, was their land claim.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I'm not that dumb. I figured it was probably named after humans and not just random. But at the same time, it's fascinating to know that that's kind of their borders that they set up.
Yeah, from these land claims.
Do we have any, Hatfield and McCoy type action where, the Mercers really can't stand the Denny Party and they're like, you stay over there, Denny's? Yeah,
there was a lot of conflicts between Boren and David Swinson Maynard, better known as Doc Maynard. The dividing line in the property between their land claims was actually Yesler Way, where everything north of Yesler Way...
Oh, there's a Maynard Street down there, too.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're
down in the International District.
Yeah,
that's Maynard's land claim.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then north of that was the Borans' land claim. And the Borans and the whole Denny Party were prohibitionists. They were Methodists. They were very pious men and women. Maynard was a very secular, high-functioning alcoholic.
Love shooting guns in the air.
Yeah. So there were a lot of kind of conflicts between the two of them. And that's one of the big reasons that became the Skid Row district, and the bad part of town was all the brothels and opium dens and things like that were on Maynard's land claim.
Yeah, the awesome part of town was down
exactly.
Right, okay.
The fun area is all Maynard's.
Sinners.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Booze and drugs and prostitutes.
Okay, sorry to digress. That's
no problem. So there's already a handful of people living out here, a handful of white settlers living out here, and Mercer says, okay, this is the perfect place. So he files his land claim right where we are in Lower Queen Anne. So this is Mercer's land claim in Lower Queen Anne.
And so we're talking, he brought a family, so he would get 640 acres or something.
I think he only got 320 because his wife had died on the way
Nancy,
over.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and his daughters were all single women, and single women didn't get anything because it's the 1850s.
Sure.
So he gets I think he only got 320. He might have filed for 640. I'm not positive on that. Yeah. So that's adding insult to injury there. So the South Lake Union, kind of that Lower Queen Anne area, that's where he files his land claim. And so he gets his daughters up here, and they all start to settle in this area. So yeah, the southern border of his land claim is Mercer Street. Yeah. That's the delineation there. Roberta Fry Watt later wrote, quote, Mr. Mercer's 4 little daughters, Mary Jane, Eliza, Susanna, and Alice, were tenderly welcomed by the pioneer women whose hearts ached for the motherless girls.
By the Maynard family.
Thomas Mercer became a leader in local community, becoming a probate judge, and gaining the nickname Judge Mercer and Uncle Tommy. At a 4th of July picnic on his land, he gave a speech suggesting that the large lake in the area be named after George Washington.
Oh.
So he said, let's name this Lake Washington.
Cool.
And it did. And the small lake be called Lake Union, hoping that someday a canal be built to connect the larger lake to Puget Sound and allow ships safe harbor.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, right. So that's why it was named Lake Union. It was before the canals were built. It was before Lake Washington was connected, because he said, let's build canals here, and we'll call it Lake Union, because it'll be the union between Lake Washington and the Puget Sound.
Where the water goes brackish.
Yeah,
okay,
right?
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Before the locks were built, before all that was put into place.
Wow. When did the locks come, do you know?
Much later. I think they came in...
85 or something?
85. Before that,
1987? So wait, that would be after
1910s, maybe something like that. I'm not positive when the locks were put in, but it was later. It was when the canals were built.
Okay, yeah, cool. What foresight he had to say that then. To have like, this is going to happen one day, just watch.
And it did, before they put in the Aurora Bridge and before they put in the Ballard Bridge and the Montlake Bridge, they did have massive 3-mast ships would put harbor in Lake Washington. And there's a great picture of the last giant 3-masted ship coming out through the canal as they're building the Aurora Bridge. The Aurora Bridge is like halfway built, and this massive ship whose masts extend higher than the height of the bridge coming out through the canal.
Holy cow. Is that where the Alki pirates come from? Is that what the Seafarer Pirates?
Seafarer Pirates?
Is that part of them? Are they still around, descendants of that?
Seafarer Pirates are still around. I don't think they're direct descendants, but they're spiritual descendants of this.
That'll play.
In 1859, Thomas Mercer married Hester L. Ward. In 1860...
Poor Nancy.
Yeah, well, she's been gone for a few years now. He's moving on in the frontier. You don't live that long. Life expectancy is about 49.
Especially with the cholera running around.
Yeah. In 1860, Thomas's younger brother, Asa Shin Mercer, arrived in the Northwest after graduating from Franklin College in Indiana. So this is kind of how the Mercers got out here, but Asa Mercer is really kind of the hero of this story. He's the main figure.
Hold on, though. Before we move on, Thomas Mercer, as we were talking about before. Is Thomas Street named for Thomas Mercer, or is it a different Thomas, I wonder?
I don't know.
We'll have to do some research on that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not positive. Maybe.
All right. It's just convenient that they're like so near each other that I'm like, there's a correlation perhaps. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, bye, Thomas.
So,
it's Asa time.
Asa time, yeah. Asa was 21 when he arrived in the Northwest and was probably the only person in a few hundred miles with a college degree. Daniel Bagley, through a great deal of...
Damn, he must have, lorded that over everybody. Listen, I've got the college degree.
I went to college.
Excuse me, peasant.
Yeah, he's the learned one.
Uncle Tommy, that's my guy also, so...
So he's well connected.
Yeah,
He's got some learning.
Damn, this guy's the boss, man.
So he was 21 years old. Okay. Daniel Bagley, through a great deal of political maneuvering, had secured the rights to build the University of Washington territory in the young city of Seattle.
Okay.
So there's really maybe 100 people living in Seattle at the time.
Oh.
And there's this kind of they want it to be the capital, which is why we have Capitol Hill.
Oh.
Because they wanted this to be the capital of Washington. And they ended up getting the Capitol in Olympia and the University of Washington here.
Oh, because at that time it was like having those type of institutions put your city on the map.
Exactly, yeah. That was a big deal. So Asa Mercer worked as a carpenter along with Bagley and his brothers, and by 1861, the University of Washington was ready to open.
Oh, wow.
It was a one-building school. It was on what's now the corner of 4th and University downtown.
Oh, wow.
So you know where the Olympic Fairmont Hotel is?
Yeah.
That's where the University of Washington was.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, one building. It would move to its current campus in 1895. So it was just that one building for years and years.
Yeah, so for you said 61?
34 years.
Okay, so when did he start it? 60 is when he got here? Is that what you're saying?
1860 he got here, and by 1861 the University of Washington was ready to open.
He was getting stuff done then.
He was, yeah. Quick turnaround there.
Good job, Asa.
Asa Mercer, as the most educated man in town, served as the president of the university.
Obviously.
Yeah, as well as the administration, faculty, and janitor. It was a one-man operation.
Oh, that's good. At least he wasn't a dick about it then.
No,
he did the cleaning too. He wasn't just like, I'm the fancy one in charge of the education. He actually helped. Okay.
Oh, yeah. He ran the whole show.
Oh, cool.
Took out the garbage, did everything. No one crossed the Oregon Trail to get an education, and it would be over a decade before UW graduated its first student.
Oh, no.
For years and years, nobody was going to UW.
It's funny because this area is known for being so literate now.
Now, yeah. It's one of the most literate, if not the most literate city in the country.
Yeah, a lot of Amazon books being ordered from the home base here. Okay.
But not a lot of people... Nobody's going to cross the Oregon Trail to go to college.
A 5-month journey where half of our party dies is what I want to do to get some smarts.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I've heard stories, I've never found this actually cited anywhere, but that inspectors would come to make sure that the university was operating as it needed to, and they would hire loggers to come in to pretend to be taking tests and taking classes.
Oh.
But I've not found that confirmed. That might just be a myth. On the frontier, the ratio of men to women was high. Some accounts say men outnumbered women at a rate of 10 to 1. Because there's not a lot of opportunities for women on the frontier.
That Maynard guy's got the market cornered.
Yeah.
He's down there with his opium and his prostitutes. And
yeah.
he's like, come on over.
Huge market for prostitution in an environment like that.
Oh my God. Poor ladies.
Yeah. The territorial census of 1860 put Thurston County, which Seattle was a part of at the time, there was no King County yet, at about 3-1. So between 3-1 and 10-1 is the ratio of men to women, but either way more men than women out here. Brothels thrived, and many men married and started families with the prostitutes they hired for their services.
Oh, okay.
So that was not an uncommon thing for a man to marry.
Isn't that like rule number 1? You don't fall in love with the sex worker.
I don't know if that's rule number 1. That's maybe a piece of sound advice. I don't know. But back then it wasn't. I mean, with the ratio the way it was, and there were a lot of high-end brothels, and people would fall in love and they would get married. And a lot of these brothels ended up in, these long-lasting, happy families, which is really not something we typically think about on the frontier.
A little silver lining there.
Yeah. The pious in Seattle were looking for a solution to the shortage of eligible women, and Thomas Mercer suggested a delegation be sent back east in the hopes of convincing young women to make the trek out to Puget Sound. So 22-year-old Asa thought it was a great idea, and brought it to the attention of Territorial Governor William Pickering, who refused to fund such an expedition because there was a lack of available funds.
Had they tried the Japanese sex robots yet? Were they investigating that?
Not yet. Okay. They wasted all their technology on building Xboxes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't...
Hindsight.
Yeah. If they got the Japanese sex, it's just a trip over the Pacific to get those sex robots.
It's just about as difficult.
Right, yeah. So they're just saying, let's go out east, let's get some women back, and the territorial governor is saying, we don't have enough money to do such a trip. So Asa took it upon himself to seek funding from the frustrated single men of Seattle. He raised an unknown amount of money and he headed east.
The original GoFundMe.
Yeah, exactly. He started up a Kickstarter.
Listen, all you guys throw $1.50 in, I'll be back.
Yeah, under the rewards section, it's a wife.
Oh, you gave $5? We're bringing back a wife and some pants.
Yeah, exactly, and a digital download. He took a ship down to Panama, crossed the isthmus, and took a ship back up the east coast to Boston.
Was that common?
That was a very common way. It was way more expensive, but you could take a ship down to Panama. It was about 25 to 30 miles at the narrowest part. You cross, and then you take another ship up east.
I wonder who the second most educated person in town was, who now could be like, now I'm in charge, you fools.
Yeah, I'm the new president of the university. I'll take out the garbage now. Where are we here? So yeah, he headed up the east coast from Panama to Boston, and the women of Boston were having none of him. They did not want to go down, cross, and head back up.
I mean, he offered them a boat ride back?
He offered them a boat ride back.
That seems way better than the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, way better, yeah. But they're saying, why would we want to leave to go to this frontier town?
We have Harvard.
Yeah, exactly. He found better luck in Lowell, Massachusetts. And the Civil War had just started, and Lowell had already been hit hard. It was a textile town, and the supply of southern cotton had been cut off. So the small community was in a sudden and devastating depression.
Was that like pre-tech cities? Like if you were a textile town, was that like what we think of now as like the San Jose's and Seattle?
Kind of, yeah. It was big business back then.
Back when the newspapers used to control everything.
Yeah,
and, if you made product, you were a king. Okay.
Yeah, it's the old startups.
Yeah.
but very successful,
sure.
Their supply line was cut off because of the Civil War, so they have no economy anymore. So Asa promised that if they were able to secure $250 for the cost of the journey west, they would be greeted with open arms and guaranteed jobs as school teachers in the frontier town. So he's saying, if you $250, you can get out of this horrible situation, come over here, you're guaranteed employment, your odds of finding a great husband are very high.
Now wait, are they going to be teaching at the University of Washington? Is that what he's promising them?
He's promising them jobs as school teachers, so not the higher education, but...
Okay, because he built his own, I mean, it just kind of like...
That is
works out, I guess.
Saying, hey, I've got this school, it's one room, I take out the garbage.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah. 8 women and 1 man left Lowell with Mercer. They were aged 18 to 35, or 15 to 35, rather. The man was 46 and in poor health, who thought a change of scenery and getting away from New England's harsh winters might be good for him. He accompanied 2 of his daughters on the trip. He also left behind his wife, son, and youngest daughter. So, 8 women, 1 man.
Okay.
They departed for New York to catch their ship and picked up 3 more women and 1 more man, also older. They boarded the SS Illinois and departed New York Harbor on March 14th, 1864, and arrived in Panama 10 days later. They traveled 25 miles across the Isthmus of Panama and were delayed a week because their ship hadn't arrived yet. Bad coal and a leaky boiler delayed it. And on April 3rd, 1864, they boarded the SS America and headed towards San Francisco, a trip that took 2 weeks to complete. They were delayed again in San Francisco because Mercer was planning on taking the monthly steamship, but because they arrived a week later than expected, Mercer gained the party passage on a lumber bark to Puget Sound. So It's a long trip. They're getting all these delays.
But it's like, I'm thinking about traveling by ship, and I'm thinking of, like, the people that died from scurvy and stuff. I mean, they're taking technology, like ships with better technology, just sailing up the coast.
Right, yeah. These aren't, you're not going to die of scurvy on one of these ships.
A couple weeks from New York down to Panama is pretty okay.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty decent, yeah.
As opposed to 5 months going through the mountain passes
and
stuff.
Yeah, and you're much more comfortable on these ships than you would be on a wagon train.
Okay.
A lot less risk.
Cool.
Lot safer. Another short trip on the sloop Kidder, Asa Mercer and his group of young women and 2 men arrived at Yesler's Wharf just before midnight on May 16th, 1864. After 2 long months of travel, the Mercer girls, as they have since been dubbed, were at their new home. The following day, there was a grand reception. A speech was given thanking the women for the, quote, self-sacrificing spirit they had manifested in leaving the loved firesides of happy homes to plod life's weary way on this northwestern coast.
Wow.
At which point they're probably saying, oh, damn it.
We've been duped.
Yeah, they said this would be great. Now they're saying, thank you for your sacrifice. All of the women were married within a short time of arriving, with the exception of one who became ill and died.
Oh,
yeah.
Another Nancy.
It is not known whether or not they married the men who financed the trip in the first place. So married men, but we don't know if the Kickstarter donation got the reward it was promised.
But it worked.
It worked, yeah.
Okay. Sort of. I mean, now what? It's now 5-1 instead of 10-1?
Not even that, probably, because there's only
7-1 now.
11 women and 1 of them died.
Oh boy.
So there's 10 more women. So maybe 150 people. Yeah. So yeah, it's still a low ratio or high ratio, depending on how you look at it. Asa Mercer was a beloved figure around town. He was elected unanimously to the territorial legislature and continued his duties as the president of the University of Washington.
No, at this time he's like 26, 27 years old or something like that, right?
He's
25?
23, I think.
Oh,
This is a year later.
What year are we in?
This is 1864. So yeah, no, he's about 24.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, he's young. He's in the territorial legislature, president of the University of Washington.
He's a real mover and shaker.
Oh yeah, and hero to the people of the Northwest. The first trip had been such a success that Asa decided he would like to do it again, but this time he was thinking bigger. Instead of bringing back a dozen or so women, he would bring back 700.
Oh, what?
Yeah, much larger.
Filled up the Titanic and started sailing, huh?
Yeah, and that's actually kind of foreshadowing to how this trip is going to go.
Oh, no.
The Titanic. He also was not shy about his boasting in his abilities and the confidence he had to complete this task. He went around to the bachelors of Seattle, and instead of simply asking them for financing the trip, he guaranteed them that if they gave him $300, he would bring them back a wife.
Wow.
Which is a skeezy thing to do.
Yeah, man.
He's getting pretty big for his britches.
Okay.
There were many takers. The exact numbers were not known to anyone but Mercer himself, and Mercer set off again to the East Coast. Then on April 15th, 1865, President Lincoln was shot.
Oh,
so
boy.
The Civil War's over, just ends. President Lincoln's shot. The eastern part of the United States is just in shambles, devastated from the war. Mercer knew Lincoln slightly, and there were connections between the Denny Party and Lincoln back in Illinois, so he was kind of planning on using this political clout to try to assist him in this effort.
Okay.
But then President Lincoln gets shot, the eastern part of the United States is in ruins, and things are not...
But he's got pockets full of coins, man.
He does,
he's rich.
He does. He is pretty loaded. He's got a decent amount of money from these takers.
An undisclosed amount of $300 takers there. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So the Civil War is now over, and General Grant had promised Mercer transport. But that was blocked by the Quartermaster General, who maintained that the use of federal property for a private endeavor like this was illegal. So they're saying he can use these Navy vessels, but they're saying now that's blocked. Now we can't use these vessels anymore. Ben Holliday, a speculator, took an interest in Mercer's plan and offered to buy a transport and deliver 500 passengers around the Horn of South America for a small profit.
That's super dangerous, though, right?
Going around South America?
Yeah.
It's a longer trip, but it's not that much more dangerous than...
It's the Cape of Good Hope or something like that that's tough or something?
Is
that Africa that's tougher to go around?
Africa's, I think, is tough to go around.
Okay, one of them's
But this is not... It's not as dangerous as crossing the Oregon Trail still, going around South America.
There's no sea bears that are going to eat you when you're...
Yeah. It's just a much longer trip than crossing at Panama. But I think it's probably maybe even a little cheaper. I'm not positive. But it's just a different way of going around South America.
Okay.
So he was attempting to recruit young women on the East Coast, but newspapers, especially the New York Herald, caught wind of it and ran an expose on Mercer. So the Herald posited that anyone who shipped out with Mercer was likely to end up working as a prostitute who was stuck on the West Coast with no hope of recourse.
Well, that's not fair. I mean, sure, he's selling them to people back in...
He is,
but I mean, into marriage.
Into marriage. It's but they're saying, you shouldn't trust this guy who's saying, come out, and there's no there's no real communication between the East Coast and the West Coast, so they hear what this guy's doing, and they say, this sounds shady as shit.
Yeah. There's no way to confirm this with Google. There's
There's
no...
We can't run
a
background check on him.
Yeah. And I mean, if you just work it through to conclusion, it's a pretty insane idea to
it's crazy.
I'm going to get on this ship and go somewhere I know nothing about with this guy who's real charming. A lot of stories go bad when it starts like that.
But look how many denominations of $300 he has. He must be trustworthy.
He is rich.
Those that the New York Herald also posited that those that did not have to resort to prostitution would end up married to ugly and unloving men. And some reporters posited that women were heading to a fate worse than Mormonism. Mormonism is super new at this time.
Wow.
Also. And
still super made up.
but it's a very new very new religion, and people are super wary and speculative of new religious movements.
Yeah,
for very legitimate reasons.
Exactly. I mean, especially again when it's all word of mouth.
Right. Yeah.
There's no way to confirm or do any kind of background information on any of this. So it's religion specifically.
Yeah, and the Mormons have just been chased out of New York. The Mormons are not really welcome figures anywhere at this point. So they're saying this is a fate worse than Mormonism. That's a big accusation to level.
It's also pretty rude.
It is, yeah. it's When the ship was ready to depart New York Harbor on January 6th, 1866, there were around 100 single women ready to board.
Oh, cool.
He's promised 700. He's got about 100.
Hey, I mean, still, you're almost making it 50-50, at that point.
At that point, it's getting close, yeah. He resorted to selling passage to single men and married couples because he was desperate to pay out the contract he had signed with Holiday. Okay. He didn't have enough money to pay it. Also on board, there were family members of those who had been separated by his previous trip. So the guy that headed over with his daughters, he's now bringing back over his wife, youngest daughter.
Pretty stand-up guy to do that.
Yeah. Well, he's charging them as well. So it's not just out of the goodness of his heart. He needs people on the ship to pay passage.
Okay.
Holiday demanded the money that Mercer didn't have, so he took everything Mercer did have, and they set around for South America. So Holiday says, just give me what you got, and we'll head out.
Now, at 24 years old, I had nothing. You could have taken my guitar.
Yeah.
What are you going to get from this guy?
that only had 3 strings and no case,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But he's got his initial investment, and he's got the money that he's taken from these other people for passage.
So take all that and then get out of here.
And so now Mercer has nothing, and they're setting off around South America. So 3 months later, the ship docked in San Francisco. They'd made it around South America, and they were ready to make the final leg of the trip. But Holiday had other plans. He ordered everyone off the boat and told Mercer this was as far as they were going.
No.
Mercer tried to persuade him to take the rest of the way, but Holiday, already taking less money than he was promised, refused to budge, kicked everybody off the ship, and said, this is the end of the line.
Oh, no.
San Francisco is where we stop. So now he's stuck with all these people that he's already taken money from, promised transport to Seattle, way less than he initially was trying to get, and now they're stranded in San Francisco.
Time to raise tuition.
Yeah, right. For the nobody that's studying at the University of Washington.
Poor one guy.
Yeah. Mercer telegraphed Washington Territorial Governor Pickering asking for $2,000, but Pickering did not send the money. He said, we can't afford it. Mercer was able to convince sailors on lumber schooners to deliver the women to the Northwest for free.
Oh, no.
They were eager for female companionship and allowed the women on board. Many of the women, though, decided to stay in San Francisco, fed up with Mercer and his broken promises.
Yeah.
So if you get there, and this guy's been lying to you for the whole trip, he's been scheming, he's been clearly less than reputable, and you arrive in this awesome city like San Francisco, you're going to say, I'm not going to this logging town where you've lied about everything else.
Yeah.
You just stay there.
What was San Francisco like at that time? Was it pretty awesome?
Oh, it was booming.
Oh,
it was
cool.
booming. After the gold rush in 49,
yeah,
San Francisco became a well-established city on the West Coast. San Francisco was the place to be.
Once again, just like with the tech boom, we're just behind stupid San Francisco.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, a lot of parallels between us and San Francisco. But yeah, San Francisco is a jumping city in the 1860s, for sure. So Mercer became enamored with one of the women under his care, and when he told her his feelings, she laughed in his face. So he just gets rebuffed.
Oh, man.
Mercer was broke. He had spent all the money collected from the Bachelors of Seattle. He was coming back with less than a fifth of what he promised, and was returning much later than expected, almost a year later.
Oh, man.
He was not a welcome figure in Seattle. Many men had given him $300 when were promised a wife. And now he's coming back with a much smaller amount of women than he...
If we can separate the part where he's not showing up with the awful practice that he's part of, like, I'll go buy you some wives, come on. The fact that he comes back at all, though, is, at least he didn't, like, just turn tail and run.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a little bit of character in there somewhere, it sounds like.
He comes back to face the music?
Yeah. I mean, there's some deplorable things he's done, but there's, like, a little bit of respect for the fact that he stood up to...
That he comes back and follows through.
Yeah. And there's still streets named after him, so
there are.
It must have worked out okay.
The streets and the island are both named after Thomas Mercer.
Okay, that's the real upstanding guy, not the guy who started the sham university.
Thomas Mercer is an upstanding character of good moral fiber.
I take back what I said. He's a jerk.
Yeah, Ace is kind of a dick.
Yeah.
He's a cocky kid. He's got his college degree. He comes out. He's like, hey, I am 22 years old. I know how the world works. I am going to do this great
Most
thing.
educated person in Seattle.
Oh,
yes, of course.
Mm-hmm. The evening after he returned to Seattle, a meeting was held at Yesler's Hall, where Mercer attempted to calm the angry crowd. The Puget Sound Daily claims he did just that, writing, quote, Reverend Daniel Bagley was called to the chair, who briefly stated the object of the meeting, which was to hear an address by Mr. A.S. Mercer in regard to his experience while in the East conducting the famous immigration enterprise. Mr. Mercer then addressed the audience, to which address marked attention was paid, the speaker being frequently applauded. The audience was composed in part of the fair immigrants who had so recently arrived, and it is a fact that has no little weight on the vindication of Mr. Mercer's reputation against the assaults that have been made upon it, that those immigrants placed the utmost confidence in him. At the close, the chairman made a few very appropriate remarks, after which the meeting adjourned, apparently with the best of goodwill towards Mr. Mercer and all concerned.
Wow.
So apparently he talks his way out of it. With the help
like
of
he
Bagley.
always does.
Yeah, old smooth-tongued Mercer.
Yeah, good old Asa.
Mm-hmm. Mercer married one of the women he brought on the second trip, Annie Stevens.
Not the one that laughed in his face.
Not the one that laughed in his face, no. So he brings back a fifth of what he was promised. He married one of the women for himself, and he does not deliver on this promise that he's made to all these frontier men that he'll bring them back wives.
And in those times, man, there wasn't like... You solved your problems with a punch to the face or a musket ball or something like that. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any records of him actually being assaulted or injured, but he is not a welcome figure in Seattle.
I can't imagine the police of the time being able to do anything about it either.
Yeah.
Probably some of them got burned.
Probably, yeah. Most of the young women who came on the second trip married and became school teachers. Just a short time after returning, Asa Mercer and his wife left Seattle for the Rocky Mountains, where he lived the rest of his life as a rancher. So he's kind of driven out of town. Having failed to deliver on his lofty promises, the promising young man, who was president of the university and served on the territorial legislature, was no longer welcome in Seattle.
Well, good for Seattle.
Yeah.
Way to take a guy who's doing deplorable things, who came back to face the music, and tell him, get out of here.
Yeah, we don't want you here.
Your dad, he can stay. That guy's all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. As a brother. Thomas was his brother.
Brother,
yeah, his older brother.
I've learned nothing. I spent a half hour going over this, and I knew nothing.
Yeah, and that's the story of Mercer's Maidens, or the Mercer Girls, which is has been adopted in several times. Have you ever seen the movie Seven Brides, or the musical Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
No, but I will now.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's about. It's about the same kind of thing. Or there was an old TV show called Here Come the Brides.
Okay.
It was set in Seattle.
Cool. I never saw
from
that.
the early 1970s, I think, is when
Okay.
it was on. Yeah, it's all on YouTube now.
All right.
But yeah, this is trying to get the women out here, and it's just a mess. Wow. Just a mess.
The Mercer mess.
The Mercer, this is the original Mercer mess right here, yeah.
That guy.
So the next time you're stuck on Mercer, think of
Stupid ass Asa.
stupid ass Asa Mercer. But he was the president of the University of Washington, you know, but he was driven out of town.
It's gonna be tough for some Husky fans out there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for listening to the Seattle Files. Thank you so much, Gregr, for being here.
I had the best time. Thanks for teaching me
Great,
something.
fantastic. I'll be back next Tuesday with a new topic and a new guest. If you have a topic suggestion you'd like to hear an episode about, shoot me an email at theseattlefiles@gmail.com. We're available on iTunes, Stitcher, and a couple of other platforms. The website is theseattlefiles.com. And thank you for listening. Be back next Tuesday. Be back next Tuesday. Be back next Tuesday. Be back next Tuesday.